All right, guys. Today we have something really, really crazy to talk about, and obviously in general, Wooloo and the entire Sheep Esports staff, they do an awesome job of getting us the latest roster moves, getting us the latest news, keeping us up to date on transfers and rumors and all that stuff. But every once in a while, they dive a little bit deeper. They drop a random kind of crazy story on us out of the middle of nowhere, and this is one of those for Wooloo. He had been working on this and grinding this behind the scenes for a really, really long time, and then hyping it up, and he dropped this absolute banger on us, and this thing got 1 million views on Twitter. This is something people were really, really hyped up, excited, and anticipating. Sources Caps revealed as the highest paid LEC player in 2025, G2, Fnatic, and Movistar Koi lead the active roster spending, and with an average salary of 240,000 euros, we dive into the full breakdown below. Here's the article. Everything about LEC salaries unveiled from LEC Wooloo, and I know with how well this went over and how people really liked this info, I know people were asking for even more. We want specific salaries, we want more numbers, we want more information, more data, whatever. I think that's going to come in due time, but for right now, we got a lot of information on the LEC. I know people are asking about it for the LCS as well. Hopefully we'll be getting that, but in this video today, I did want to dive into this article from LEC Wooloo, where again, he reveals all different kinds of stuff, breaking down the numbers behind LEC player salaries and team budgets. So let's see what's going on here with this article. Let's see what he came up with after putting all this time, effort, energy, conversations, all that craziness that Wooloo is known for. So to compile this report, salary data from all 50 LEC players active in the 2024 summer and 2025 winter splits was collected over several months. This was achieved with input from multiple reliable sources familiar with the numbers. While every effort was made to ensure accuracy, many figures were approximations due to differences in how teams pay players and occasional inconsistencies among sources. Salary bonuses were also taken into account when relevant. For more than 95% of the cases, the reported salaries were verified to be within a maximum of plus or minus 20,000 euros from the actual amounts, which isn't too bad, especially at the scale of the numbers we're talking about. If the average salary is 240K, being plus or minus 20K, not really that bad. That seems pretty good to me. The numbers and points were made in the following report should be very, very close to reality. So, we're starting off with salary bonuses. Bonuses significantly impact how much players earn. Most commonly, players receive performance-based bonuses tied to competitive success. For example, winning an LEC trophy or qualifying for Worlds often boost players' earnings. Bonuses are also commonly including stuff like compensation for participating in media content or streaming activities. So that's super cool. Obviously, I do think, we want players, especially, on my end, the media side of things, but I think fans in general want players to do as much streaming, as much media content, all that stuff as possible. So I think having incentives tied to that stuff is very, very fun and cool. Fans want to interact. They want to see their favorite players. They want to, have as much content stuff come out. That's good for everybody. It's good for the league. It's good for the players. It's good for the fans. It's good for the teams, everyone. So that makes a ton of sense. In response to German regulations that prevent teams from reducing player salaries, many teams have adopted a workaround. What was previously listed as a bench rate is now considered the base salary in contracts, while being part of the active roster is treated as a bonus. Now, I still don't like stuff like this. I think a lot of this stuff is really gross. The fact that teams can bench players and kind of just reduce their salaries and reduce their contracts overall. Yeah, I get it. You don't want to pay a guy his full rate if he's not even starting, but you shouldn't sign players to 3-year contracts then and then bench them, 6 months or a year into it. I don't know. I still feel like it just feels a little bit scummy, a little bit gross to me. It does feel bad that you can just bench a player and then cut his salary, like whatever the percentage, 50%, 75%, 85%, 90%, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Still feels a little bit gross to me, but that's kind of a whole nother story, I guess. The active roster bonus often doubles the base salary. Payment structures vary widely among teams. Some pay players per game rather than offering a fixed active roster bonus. In this report, active roster bonuses and media attendance bonuses are consistently included. Performance bonuses are also partially accounted for, especially when they are likely to be earned. So how much do LEC players earn? This is a very, very big thing, obviously, that we're all wondering. LEC player salaries are typically discussed on a yearly basis, which is fitting since all players are currently signed to annual contracts ranging from 1 year to a max of 4 years. These contracts end each year within a defined window in mid-November to ensure players are paid year-round. Riot Games' LEC rulebook sets the minimum wage for players at 60,000 euros. And I know euros and dollars are usually a little bit off. I think euros usually ends up being a little bit more in dollars. So I don't know, maybe that's like 63, 65, 68, 70K dollars, something like that. But it's the amounts are roughly generally the same. But most players earn more than this base amount. On the other hand, no LEC player has earned a 7-figure salary since the start of 2024, reflecting the downward downward trend in salaries over the past 3 years. So that's crazy to note as well that, even a guy like Caps isn't making $1 million a year. Now, hey, he might be making over $1 million a year when you count in, sponsorships and, his streaming and content creation and maybe some of the other stuff he does. I don't know, but at least from his LEC salary, at least it doesn't seem like he's making, $1 million per year, which, hey, I'm sure people would argue he deserves it. Some people say maybe he doesn't deserve it. I don't know, but that is definitely an interesting note here. According to data collected by Cheap Esports, the average salary for LEC players in 2025 is $240K. In comparison, the estimated average for summer 2024 was $270K, marking a 11% decrease since the last split. This figure accounts only for players on the active roster of an LEC team. Now, hey, that could mean overall salaries are going down. It could mean there's more rookies, more cheap players, more young players. I don't necessarily know. Maybe there's some differences between, summer and winter split, whatever. There's a lot of different things that could mean, but overall, it does seem like salaries are still dropping a little bit, which is obviously, sucks, but if it's also making things more sustainable and make more business sense, I think that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, and hey, 240K is not too bad. Now, I did see people like Odawamne saying, hey, yeah, 240K average, that is very, 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 very good, but the average lifespan of an LEC pro player is very short. And also, leading up to the time where you actually make the LEC, when you're playing in ERLs or, playing solo queue or whatever, you're making little to no money. So yeah, you might be able to make 240K for a couple years, but a couple years before that, you sacrificed everything and made no money. So really, it ends up evening out to really maybe even being less than that effectively per year. And then once you're done, it goes back to zero. So, you really do need to make sure you're either having a long LEC career, which not very many people are going to have, or you really need to make sure you're, building up a foundation of something else, whether that be content creation or coaching or being on broadcast or being able to do something else, because hey, 240K for 3 years or 6 years, if it took you 3 years to get there, you're not set for life by any means, which obviously is something that these players need to take into account. But obviously when you're in the grind, you're spending pretty much damn near your whole life 24/7 trying to become the best that you can, so it can be hard to kind of zoom out a little bit and take care of your future as well. A close look at the average salaries. While the average salary is estimated at 240K, the median salary for LEC players in the winter split is estimated at 165K. The median value is significantly below the average, indicating that the majority of players earn less than the average, which is driven up by a small number of top-tier earners. That's also definitely something to keep in mind. This disparity also contributes to the decline in average salaries observed over recent years. Practical reasons behind this trend will be explored further below. So, again, yeah, the average is 240, but really the average player is probably earning closer to 150K. That might actually be a more accurate number. When you have a lot of top high-end data, the median can sometimes give you maybe a better picture of what the actual average salary is, or like typical salary would be in the LEC. So I think that's maybe a better figure to use here. Rookie players entering the LEC in 2025 earn an average of 115K. Factors such as perceived skill at the time of contract negotiation and brand value play a significant role in determining salaries. Obviously, a lot of rookie players aren't coming in with big brands or anything like that. Interestingly, data shows that average salaries increase substantially with experience. While this may reflect the reduced risk associated with signing veteran players, it's also subject to selection bias. Only the highest performing players tend to remain in the LEC long enough to become multi-year veterans. So yeah, if you prove yourself good enough to stay in the LEC, yes, you are going to get a pay raise over time. I'm sure you would see that across all kind of professional sports and everything, but you'd probably even see that across all professions, period, in the world. It is common for teams to be offering multi-year contracts with incremental annual salary increases. Yeah, that just makes sense, especially with stuff like inflation and everything. For players who sign contracts with new LEC teams in 2025, the average annual salary is estimated at 170K. Korean players in the LEC, meanwhile, earn an average of 160K per year. So some very, very interesting different data and everything there. The highest paid LEC players. This is something that people have been looking for sure. According to data collected by Cheap Esports, mid laner Caps is currently the highest paid player in the LEC. Behind him, we have Hansama, Humanoid, Larson, and El Yoya in no particular order. They're rounding out the top 5. A few other players are positioned just below these top tier salaries. So that is very, very interesting to know. Obviously, Caps, Hansama, Humanoid, El Yoya seen as some of the best players in the LEC. It kind of depends on the split and the season and the meta and all that stuff. But Larson is a guy who maybe a couple years ago, people definitely would have considered in this top 5 category, but as of late, maybe not so much. So to hear that he is in the top 5 is maybe a little bit shocking and surprising and interesting to to people. So that is definitely something to consider as well. If you have a good year, good couple of years, you sign a big contract, you might be outperforming your contract or underperforming your contract, whatever, as the years go on, obviously. In line with Caps' earnings, the mid-lane role stands out as the highest paid position in the LEC. While Caps has held the title of the league's highest paid player for 2 years, mid laners have consistently dominated the spot for at least 4 years. The trend is not exclusive to the LEC. Mid lane is the highest earning role across most competitive regions. Notably, legendary mid laner Faker remains the highest paid player in all of League of Legends, earning an estimated $6 million annually, according to one of the South Korean news outlets. In contrast, the support role continues to be the lowest paid in the LEC, while the LEC displaying a particularly stark disparity. For 2025, no support player ranks among the league's top earners, and the average support salary is about half of the average mid laners. That is very, very, very crazy. So here's something interesting. We do have average mid lane salary at $345,000. Again, some of that could be brought up by guys like Caps, who have the highest overall salary. And then you have down to the average support, which is $168K. And it also seems like supports are dropping the fastest, being down 32% from last split. It does seem like that is very, very, very crazy. But you do see a lot of different positions with that average salary dropping a lot. And you can even imagine, from 2023 and 2022 and 2021, these prices dropping even further, especially percentage-wise. Really, really, really crazy. Which teams spend the most is honestly a big thing as well. Success in the LEC often comes with financial investment. G2 Esports currently leads as the highest spending team in the league. Fnatic and Movistar Koi complete the top 3. The offseason saw significant shifts with Team Heretics, SK, and Giant X reducing their budgets substantially. Meanwhile, K-Corp, previously the lowest spender in 2024, has climbed up to 7th. Rogue and Team Vitality's budgets are almost identical, making it challenging to definitively rank one higher than the other due to the possibility of a margin of error. As a result, both teams share the 5th position, much like how Rogue and Heretics did last year. In a similar vein, Team Heretics and SK fall within a 5% margin of each other, meaning their rankings could fluctuate depending on small estimation differences, maybe performance bonuses and stuff like that as well. However, for all teams, budget disparities are more pronounced. Even with a 10% margin of error, the overall rankings would remain largely unchanged. So here is those overall rankings. We do have G2, Fnatic, Koi, BDS, Rogue, Vitality, K-Corp, Giant X, SK, and Team Heretics. And to me, the thing that stands out here is, K-Corp and Giant X are both seen to be like top 5 or 6 teams this year, and they're in the bottom 4 of spending. Then you have teams like Team Vitality, which I think is one of the weaker overall rosters formed in the LEC. They're at 5th. Some people have Rogue really, really, really low. They're also at 5th. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, K-Corp literally might go to Worlds this year with the 7th most money spent. That would be very, very, very impressive. You could also argue it just means they're underpaying some of their players. Their players aren't necessarily getting what they're worth, but hey, whatever, that's a whole nother story. And hopefully also for those players, by being on K-Corp, they'll also be increasing, like their brand and followers and all that stuff, which, it's hard to put a dollar amount on. It's worth highlighting that this ranking focuses exclusively on spending for starting players. Team expenses can extend far beyond player salaries, including staff, infrastructure, housing, and even salaries for bench players. That said, the average annual budget for an LEC team is approximately $1.2 million, with the top 3 spenders accounting for 45% of the league's total spending. That is a very, very crazy difference between the top 3 and the bottom 7. Sporting financial regulations, the SFR, introduced by Riot Games for the 2024 season, aims to prevent teams from overspending. This regulation operates similarly to a salary cap, but with a threshold beyond which teams must pay a fee equal to 50% of the excess amount. If a team exceeds the designated threshold by 150%, they must pay 100% of the excess to LEC. That's very crazy. According to a report by Blix.gg in October of 2023, later confirmed by sources at Cheap Esports, the threshold is currently set at $2 million annually, approximately $400,000 per player. It's important to note that contracts signed before the 2024 season, which are still in effect, are exempt from this limit. The SFR was introduced to create a more sustainable environment for teams, addressing the overspending that has contributed to the current decline of LOL esports. Why are salaries going down? Also, is overspending the only thing that's contributed to the decline in LOL esports? I would argue against that, but yeah, it's for sure part of it. Why are salaries going down? The primary reason for ongoing downtrend in salaries is a market correction following an economic bubble in esports, which peaked in 2021. During this period, many VC and private companies saw esports as speculative investments, pouring money into them with the expectation of continued growth. As a result, some LEC organizations overspent, far exceeding their actual revenue, which never made sense. I mean, that was always silly. That was always stupid. And many people acknowledge how stupid and silly that was, even at the time that it was all happening. The only people who really didn't notice, I guess, were the teams, the owners, and the VCs. But I don't care. I think they were just kind of blinded by, the money and the growth and whatever. It wasn't going to last forever, and obviously it didn't last forever. However, there are additional factors contributing to salary reduction in 2025, according to French media L'Equipe. Teams have signed a new agreement with Riot Games, known as the Team Participation Agreement. One significant change in this agreement is a reduction in guaranteed revenue from Riot Games LEC teams. Revenue sharing has been a major component of team income, so I don't really understand there. One significant change is a reduction in guaranteed revenue. So, I wonder what the teams got back in return. Did they just agree to a reduction in revenue and they didn't get anything? I don't know. It's a little bit confusing to me. For years, the offseason was a tense period for EU fans. The NA regions, which experienced an even bigger surge during the esports bubble, were able to offer extremely attractive salaries. High-profile deals, such as the 2021 C9 Perks deal, communicated at $1.75 million due to Cloud9's announcement video. Note that this includes a large buyout to G2 and a salary spread over 3 years, or the TSM Sword Art deal worth $6 million over 2 years were some of the most notable examples. These types of offers prompted top EU talent to move to the LCS. However, the so-called esports winter has hit NA harder than expected, a trend that has often been overlooked. While not yet complete, data collected by Sheep Esports indicates the average salary for the LTA teams in 2025 is lower than the average salary for the LEC. This marks the end of NA salaries being higher and signals a reversal of trends. Notably, Jojo Pune became the first ever NA player to join the LEC team, and he may not be the last. Obviously, we also potentially, it sounded like, almost saw Spica go to the LEC as well. As the esports market stabilizes, following recent corrections, some organizations such as Heretics, K-Corp, Movistar Koi, G2 are nearing a break-even point, which is very cool to see. However, many salaries still reflect the bubble era numbers, as some players remain on contracts signed years ago. Probably, guys like Larson. A common approach for teams looking to reduce salaries for players on older contracts is to offer them an extension. This new contract typically comes with a lower salary for a longer duration, providing the team with savings while giving the player more financial security, albeit at salaries that are closer to pre-correction era. While revenue sharing has been reduced under the TPA, other regulations may present new opportunities for teams to generate revenue. Notably, in-game cosmetics for fans to purchase and the introduction of betting sponsors could provide additional income streams. Also, you see stuff that the ERLs are doing with allowing players to stream their game, stuff like that. That's definitely helping, players on the financial side of things, I'm sure. However, it remains difficult to predict exactly how much revenue these changes will generate because, the last cosmetics we saw, the emotes, they didn't sell very well, and that didn't really help teams. It didn't sound like. To summarize, top player contracts from previous years, along with the introduction of the SRF threshold, will likely continue to bring down salaries in the coming years, pushing the average lower. However, the reduction in new salaries is expected to plateau soon. If the league continues to attract more fans, salaries may rise again, but this time in a more sustainable manner, which would make a ton of sense. This should be based around how much teams are making. It should be based around a sustainable business model and letting this thing last for the long term, because if we want to see the growth and success of this thing in the long term, we can't eat up and destroy that over just a couple of years. So whatever. Here we have the author's note and the FAQ. Hey everyone, my name is Broik Seeger. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Most of you know me as LEC Wooloo. I'm mainly recognized for reporting League of Legends, so this topic is completely new to me. He's mostly recognized for roster moves. It's a subject that is often considered taboo in esports and features data that's not easy to access. That's why I'm especially excited to get feedback from you all, whether in the comments below or on my socials. My goal is to refine this work and potentially write similar reports on other pro leagues if you all find this interesting. How do you know all the numbers? During the offseason, when I report on roster movements, I'm not just a spectator, I'm actively involved. I track every movement, which allows me to be quick with the news when a deal is finalized. This also lets me exchange context and information, whether it's telling a player about a big team looking for someone in their position or informing a team that a player might become available. I'm in the loop. Sometimes it's just about connecting people or chatting about offseason expectations. This involvement gives me a lot of insight into the numbers behind the scenes, providing a foundation for this report. Afterward, I spoke with a number of industry insiders who are familiar with these figures, helping me reach the most accurate data possible. I handle all this information with complete confidentiality, and I won't name my sources, even in private. Overall, the article took me some weeks of work, but it is mostly possible due to the trust of many people, which I acquired over several years. This is a big question that a lot of people are wondering. Why not leak the salaries of individual players? I decided against publishing the salaries of all players for 3 key reasons. It could negatively impact the players. High pay disparities could create tension between teammates, or players might be criticized that their performance doesn't match their salary. After discussing this with neutral industry experts, I felt this was the most responsible conclusion. Now, again, this is something that we do see in traditional sports, especially in America, where we do show the individual salaries. It's something I kind of argue against as well, because yes, you could say those high pay disparities could create tension between teammates, but high pay disparities could could also be used in negotiations to allow players to actually get more money and get what they're worth. I do think in general, we see this, I think in most jobs, careers, and professions, that having access to payment information benefits the employees and is a negative for the employers, because the employers then have to deal with players being like, oh, he's getting paid that, I want to get paid that, and working up the ladder and getting promotions, getting pay raises. I actually think this would be better for the players overall, and I think it's something that the Players Association should fight for at some point. Yeah, players might be a little bit wary about their public information being out or whatever, but if fans want to flame people, they're going to flame people for XYZ reason. Yeah, is this maybe a different reason, but I don't think it should be that big of a deal. Performance bonuses vary by contract and are often very difficult to verify. Since I didn't look at the majority of players' contracts directly, I can't confirm bonus figures with complete accuracy. The method I used for this report was consistent and verified with multiple sources, so accuracy wasn't compromised. However, breaking down individual salaries could introduce more error, affecting the credibility of the report. I believe this report will still be insightful without revealing specific salaries. My goal is for readers to gain valuable knowledge from this story rather than focusing on the shock factor of player X earns Y amount. That being said, if esports keeps growing in sports, reporting on all numbers is inevitably going to happen in the future, and I am not close to the idea of doing it should the points above become neglectable for me. I am hoping that the few names I mentioned won't have backlash from it. Always remember that salaries are based on value at the moment of signing. And I do think that even Wooloo putting something out like this, like the top 5 most paid players, is starting to break down that taboo of the financial data and financial information being shared. And just like Wooloo said, I do believe it's inevitable that at some point in the future, maybe it's next year, maybe it's 2 years from now, maybe it's 5 years from now, maybe it's 10 years from now, eventually we are going to know how much every single player in the LEC and LCS and probably the entire LOL esports ecosystem does make. These numbers are going to come out eventually. So I don't know. Hopefully it'll be from Sheep Esports. Hopefully it'll be from us. But somebody eventually is going to put out all these numbers, and I don't think it's going to end up being that big of a deal or that negative a thing at the end of the day. Again, I also do believe it's going to benefit players and allow them to improve their negotiation tactics and allow them to make more money in the long term as well. But very, very insane, very crazy article. So much information here to digest. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Hopefully catch you in the next one. Until then, peace.